Once again, the good folk at Lucid Eye Publications have approached me to review their work for their role-playing game of Immortal Beings of the Land of Eas, a game influenced by the poem Erlkönig by von Goethe, that encourages reflection on what it means to be fey and without death, save that death that is brought to oneself rather than occurring naturally. For more on this game, please check out Lucid Eye's website and my own review of the game itself. Links in the description. In this short series of videos, I shall be exploring further books from the Elfking line. The second adventure module for the Elfking game is the Lair of the Crimson God, a dungeon adventure that clocks in at 79 pages inclusive of cover. Unlike the previous adventure, Brew of the Rose Tower, it is specifically located within Eas, the default setting for the Elfking game. Hopefully this review will have a minimal amount of spoilers for those that wishing to play it. The general premise of the adventure is a relatively common one. Bad evil prime antagonist seeks to bring bad evil god back into the world via sacrifice. The layer of Elfking and its themes over this premise does serve to add to the experience, with the nature of the prime antagonist being made more tragic in his backstory, and what it means from an immortal perspective than, say, the two-dimensional faceless servants of Tharasdon presented in the Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil. This ties into the character's own natures and potential for ruin, and thus allows for a self-examination, in the player character terms, that the usual antagonist of this type allows. The lair itself would feel at home within other fantasy rules and settings, but this would necessarily lose the aspect of the adventure, lessening it to an interesting medium-sized dungeon among many of similar nature. With this in mind, I would suggest that the adventure works best within the conceptual setting of Elfking. A small number of encounter areas en route to the lair are presented, and one of these, alongside the nature of the antagonist, makes the adventure for me. Here, depending on how the players approach the encounter, they can find themselves in a whimsical yet dangerous battle, or with a useful ally and companions to take forward into the adventure, and indeed the wider saga that may be being played out. So in general then, the Lair of the Crimson God is a relatively standard fair dungeon, with a few standout points, particularly in its background narrative. For me, my preference would be to discard the dungeon as written, keep some of its more intriguing encounters, including the one hinted at, which may result in companions, and expand the antagonist's activities to be much more nuanced and extensive. He could be a tragic figure that presents a major threat and goal of a full saga, perhaps lurking in the background and unknown during the early portions of such a thing, rather than essentially the boss encounter at the end of a dungeon. I think that, especially in something with 79 pages to play with, I want more than is presented.